afterwards. Leonie says she's published a workbook and of 2 books that she's going to put out into the world next year. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. So welcome to the book map session today. I love this workshop because it's the start of books. You get that, right? Like this is the kickoff point. This is the point where it goes from an idea into being reality. And I'm really grateful today that we've got our awesome team on board with us. We've got Davina, the Oracle Davidson. Can you say hello, Davina? Davina's our publishing manager. She's been with us for 7 years now, famous for those intuitive drops, for knowing just exactly what your book needs and the finer details to get it on point. So really grateful to have Davina with us. We've also got Rachel, our head editor in the United States. So Rachel, massive welcome. We call Rachel the eagle eye because she sees the bits at the line level item to really get your message sharp. And also huge welcome to Kerry Norley, who's joining us as the North American book writing coach. So great to have you with us, Kerry. You've got a lot of support today to get your book map done. Welcome, Leonie. Good to see you. Guys, what we're really here to do, I'll just be can I be totally open and honest with you? Can we just have this as an open and honest and just free speech space? Is that cool? Can I get a thumbs up if you're in for that? Yeah. So our mission at Inspirational Book Writers, like the higher purpose of our business, is we believe we can change the world with our words. We believe we're in a time in human history where there's a lot of problems out there. And it's people like you and me that have the new thinking, the new consciousness, the new solutions that will really make a difference to people. Now, here's the cool thing about books, is that not only will they make a difference to people out there in the world, but they will also help you to get where you want to go in your business and in your professional life. The great thing about books is they can open so many doors. And we're going to talk about those today when we get into purpose. We're going to talk about all the different ways that you can use a book to grow your business. I think the thing that I learned when I started my coaching business in 2011 was that if I had a book and then one other offer, that's basically all I needed in terms of being able to bring new people into my world, show them that I can help them, and then get them to sign up to my stuff so that I could actually contribute to them. Because you guys get that nothing changes until someone like commits, and that in today's reality, like money is one of those ways that people show they commit. Yeah. So a big part of this is about writing books, and we'll get into purpose, and each person will have their own unique purpose. And I'll be really curious and interested to hear what each of your purposes are. Moving your people so that they know, like, and trust you, and then they can move forward into something else that you're doing. Like, that's a huge purpose for books. We've got a few more people joining us. Welcome to Ashley. Welcome to Carmel. Welcome to Heather. Kayla, great to see you as well. Fantastic to see you. So today, what we're gonna do. Oh, and Alexis is here. How good is that? Good to see you, Alexis. Been a little while. What we're going to do today is actually roll up our sleeves and do a book map. So would it be okay if we actually work a little bit today? Would that be cool? Can I get a thumbs up if you're in for that? Because guys, this has been our business since 2014. Like, we are in the business of helping people to write, publish, and launch books. And part of today is we believe that the best way to show you that we can help you is to actually help you with your book map. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get into the content. I'm just wondering if we could go to Davina. Davina, with the book map, why? Let's start with why a book map is important. You've been with us for 7 years. Why do you see, like, why even do this session? What's the key in it from your perspective?
It really helps to bring the clarity. So when you come into the intensive week, you can really hit the ground running, and you can sort of know exactly where you're going to go and start straight away and get some early runs on the board. I know when I started mine, the first one, that was before I actually was the publishing manager. I didn't have the book map. I didn't have the book map session when I first did that one, but I had pieces. And so just having those little pieces was enough to help me get something down. But I know from witnessing everybody's journey since then, that the people who have and do the book map have a lot smoother ride, and they get the pieces out early, and then the whole week just tends to flow beautifully after that.
Awesome. Rachel, is there anything you'd add to that around like the importance of a book map?
Yeah, I left a chat just now saying how it just saves so much time. You know, I've seen so many writers kind of scrambling and running around in circles trying to figure out what they're doing with their book. And once they have this book map, it just points them in a direction. They have so much clarity, you know, and then they can maximize their time. Because life these days is so busy, right? Like we sometimes stress over time. So this is a tool that can give you back some of your time.
Awesome. Who feels like they've got pieces of their book, but maybe not the whole picture? Can anyone relate to being in that position? Yeah. Would it be okay if today we really filled in those pieces and gave you more clarity? Really what the book map is about, it's clarity, it's direction, and it's giving you confidence that you know, okay, this is the pathway to actually bringing this to life. Yeah. So let's get into it, team. I believe book maps are the difference that makes the difference, especially with it coming out with grace and ease. And I'll just share with you a really interesting statistic. Some of you may have heard this one. Did you know that 81% of the population say that they want to write a book every year? And there's going to be some people that know this. Justin Wenk probably does, so please hold back. Have a guess how many actually complete their book every year. So 81%. This was a study done by Forbes magazine. It was of the American population, so I think it tracks to Australia and Canada and the Western world. What percentage of people that say they want to do it actually complete a book every year? Because you all know those people that have talked, right? Heather says 1%. It's a good guess. Can we just have a go? You know, can we have 0.5%? Okay, also another good guess. 1%. It's 0.01%. 0.01. So actually, to share with you, we've run this book map session a couple of times earlier this year. People were like 20%, 15%. So you guys have got it the most accurate. What these stats tell us is that a book is something that pretty much everyone wants to do, but that hardly anyone succeeds at. And I believe a big part of it is by getting a book map very clear, so you've got that confidence, clarity, and direction. All right, let's get into it. So, first question for you for the book map. This is a question that we never used to ask. We never used to ask this until about 2 years ago. And then I started asking this question, and I started to see that book maps came through with so much more flow and so much more ease. And so what I invite you to do is to go out to the future you, the you in the future, the you that's already written this book. And you can close your eyes for this if you want to, if that helps you to zoom out into the future. Keep them open. It's totally up to you. But go out to that moment, that version of you in the future where this book is already complete. See yourself holding the book in your hands. Maybe you can feel the weight of it, feel the edges of it. You're holding it, you can see it. Now, that future version of you, does it have a message for the you now? Is there any wisdom? Is there any encouragement? Is there any advice that future self wants you to know right now about your book as you embark on this journey now. And as ideas come through, feel free to open your eyes, write them down, capture that wisdom. We're bringing future wisdom into the present moment. What does the future version of you want to know right now? What does it want you to know? What's important? Is there a message of encouragement? Is there, what is there? And I wonder if we'd like to have any shares. Mr. Justin, would you care to share with us what your future wisdom said to the you now?
Future me said, fill it with fun, love, and excitement.
Yeah. Was that, and how was that important for you to hear that?
It's pretty important for the content of the book and for the book writing process as well. Yeah.
Because has there been a tendency to approach it in not those ways?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Can anyone else relate to that experience of like maybe being, I don't know, I'm just going to use totally my own words. I'm not saying this was your experience, Justin, but being overly serious or overthinking or, you know, something like that? Seeing a few nods. Yeah. That fun is a huge part of this. You know, Davina will often, when we run our sessions, bit of an internal joke. Well, Davina is famous for telling jokes just before we go live with our groups. She likes to bring lightness. Davina, do you just want to speak to the importance of fun and lightness in a book writing journey?
Yeah, it's really hard to be creative and flow if you're constipated with your own seriousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Angie, would you care to share what wisdom came up for you? What was being brought forward to the present moment?
Because I have like no concept, nothing, no ideas. My future me said just begin, but I have nothing, so it's kind of weird.
Yep. And isn't that so important that, like, is there anyone here that knows every single detail about every aspect of their book? Is there anyone here that knows that? There's not. No. So it's a bit like when we're driving across the country, like let's say we're driving across the United States or across Australia or across Canada at nighttime. Our headlights will only go 200 yards in front of us, and we're only going to get another 200 yards as we progress. And so stepping forward despite the unknown is a huge part of this. And you know why people, like, there's that 81% and 0.01%. The reason that gap is so massive is because people outside of this space cannot handle the uncertainty of not knowing every detail. Yeah. Rachel, do you have anything you want to just flow on from that in the years of editing that you've seen, like the perfectionism that holds people up?
Yeah, the perfectionism is huge. I mean, the interesting thing is you see it all throughout the process, right? Like first draft, next draft, cover, all the steps. So if you can work now to release some of that perfectionism, to have a map showing you where you're going, but not be so rigid and so clinging to every little detail. Like I often wish that I'd had that mindset for some of the first books that I worked on.
Because you've got, like, are you talking about the ones you've done yourself? Because you've done five now.
Yeah. But my view of how I do a book is so different now with this, framework and this mindset around it. And the perfectionism is huge. Like perfectionism has plagued me my whole life. But using this process with inspirational book writers, you're able to shed some of that so that, like Justin said, it can be light, it can be easy, it can be fun. And it can be done in community, which I think is the biggest part. We can laugh together instead of be so self-critical.
And like I've done 7 books myself. Some of them I've done within, like I've been a participant in my own program, and it was so good to do it that way. And then I tried to do one like sitting in a cabin by myself with no support, and oh my gosh, it was so much harder. It was so much harder. Perfectionism rehab, says Carmel. That's a great one. Yeah, so you can already sort of feel the value of getting together with like minds and making it okay. Like, hey, you don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. I don't know all the details for mine. But you know what? We're with a group of people that are brave and courageous and willing to take the step forward and figure it out as we go. Yeah. Inspirational book writers operates off an iterative sort of mindset where we get as much out as we can for your book, and then we go, okay, where are the gaps? And we fill in some more pieces. And then we go, okay, where are we at now? Maybe we're at 80%. What else can we put in? Okay, now we're at 90%. Now we're at 97%. And then even in the publishing process, we're sort of refining. We're going 99, 99.1, 99.2, 99.3, 99.4, 99.5. And it's like, book. Yeah, so there is an element of patience too with this. Cool. Does anyone else have a burning desire to share what they experienced, what they got there? Did anyone, Kayla, do you want to share what you got? And then we'll go into the next piece and dial in your purpose.
So mine was believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And how was that important for you to hear from your future self?
Really good, because I think I'm the sort of person who gets on a track and goes, and then I second guess myself and I stop and I go, oh, hang on, am I going the right way? And then I start to ask people around me, and then I get too much information and people tell me, no, that's shit, or you're going the wrong thing. And then I take all of people's opinions into account and it all just gets messy. And sometimes I forget to actually just listen to myself and do what I'm doing and trust my instincts, I suppose. So, and that's kind of partly what I wanted to write a book about anyway. So that's kind of where I'm at.
It's so important, hey? Who can relate to the importance of backing yourself with your voice? Has anyone else felt that? Yeah. How, Davina, do you just want to speak to that?
It's so important. And Kayla, like what you've just said, I have heard so many people and seen so many people throughout the 7 years that I've been with IBW where that's played out. And one thing, and even in publish and launch, which is like after when people go all the way through with us, that I actually coach on quite regularly, and Justin will tell you this because he's been in the program with us before, is that in this community, you're really, really well supported and held. But if you go and talk about your book or, you know, bounce it off people outside of this community, everyone's, I'm going to be really,
opinion?
Yeah.
Just to be sorry, I just jumped in on Davina because of the pirate language was about to explode there. And
Yes,
I was like,
thank you.
do we want to publicly go
No,
pirate?
probably not.
Of course. Hey, we're pirates, okay? We're pirates.
We are.
So.
We definitely are.
Alexis is smiling because she already knows that.
Yeah. But everyone has an opinion, right? And so some of those opinions will be valid, and maybe a very, very tiny fraction will be worth listening to. But most of the people that want to give you advice or give you their opinion, they haven't even written a book, or they don't know what it takes, or they're not brave enough or courageous enough to jump in the ring and in the arena and put some skin in the game themselves. So basically their opinion really doesn't matter. So that part of coming back to yourself and also being surrounded in a community of like-minded people going and heading in the same direction is super, super important.
Who got something out of Kayla's share there? Let's get a thumbs up if you got something. Yeah, awesome. All right, let's talk purpose. Let's talk purpose, hey? So when it comes to your book, the purpose is like the only voice that matters is your own inner voice. Yeah, because does the world need more copycats? Does the world need me to try and write a book that sounds like Justin? No. saying it the way that you say it is very, very important. I did a live the other day where I spoke about how when I first launched my business in 2011, my coaching business, and I did a podcast and I was talking about values, you know, like living by your values sort of thing. And one lady watched us and she goes, the way that you've said that, I finally get it. And she'd listened to Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dwyer. She'd listened to all the experts. She'd been to all their courses. She never understood it until little old Dave Thompson at 25 years of age in remote, suburban Brisbane says it. I told some story about an adventure that I'd been on and how that was living up by my values. And she goes, I get it now. So the way that you say it is really important. And a big principle that we operate from is if we think you're starting to sound like someone else or like not be your full voice, we'll be like, hey, I think you're holding back. Or you're really funny. Why did you only tell one joke in the entire manuscript? Or like, you're really cheeky. You didn't really let that show. Or like, you're actually really passionate. You're passionate and fiery and dynamic. And I think he gave us about 80%. So getting that voice right is really important. And how that translates into business is that, like we said before, people don't want to work with the copycats. They want to work with unique people that they can really vibe with. And so the more you can put your voice out, that in a way that is uniquely you, the easier it is for your audience to go, yep, that person's for me, or no, they're not. Is this making sense? Like, who wants to work with awesome people who love their vibe? Like, I definitely do. I do not want to work with people who are a pain in my ass. I definitely do not. Davina's second that. Yep. So everyone's on board with that. We want awesome people to work with. It just makes life so much more fun. It starts in the voice of the book and the way that goes out, and then that attracts the right people. Like, if you don't like the fact that we're pirates here at IBW, like you could leave, right? And we make that from the outset so that we're just clear on this is who we are. Leonie says, do not limit yourself by comparing yourself to others. Your frequency will be the magic. I love that. You guys get that you putting your frequency into your message is really important. I know Dr. Alexis talks about that a lot in her work. The frequency is super important. All right, let's go to purpose. All right, purpose. We're going to look at this from three perspectives. So 3 questions, and just jot down notes as you go, and we'll have a chat about this after we've given some perspective. So why is writing this book important for you personally? If we just cut away all the noise and all the distraction and just sit into a place of truth and beingness and stillness, why is it important? Why is it important to dedicate time to? Why is it important to follow through with? Why is it important? And secondly, on a professional level, so this might be professionally in your career or in your business or for your future business, why is the book important to your business? Now, often, books are a gateway to something. The number of times I've seen someone write their book and it opens the door to opportunity, to new business, to a greater level of authority or credibility or presence. And I really invite you to feel what's coming up here, as well as like maybe the things that are logically popping to mind. What's the book the gateway for? what opens up? Imagine a complete book. Imagine you're in that position right now. What opens up? What do you see for yourself? And so why is that book important on a professional level? I'll just speak about my own experience. So back in 2014, I was running a one-on-one coaching business. I was doing life coaching and sort of personal coaching for entrepreneurs, for business people who wanted to sort of get their inner world sorted so that they could, move forward and grow their business. And I was living in Melbourne City, and I was making about $3,000 a month, which, if you know Melbourne, is like skin of the teeth. Like, mind you, I was 25 years of age or something. So I was just making it work, skin of my teeth. I had people on like $100 a month payment plans. I had clients that really, like, some were amazing and some just wouldn't take action the way that I would have liked them to. And then when I launched my first book, it was 48 pages. It was 10,000 words. I launched my first book and I was like, I'm going to sell about 10 copies and 9 of those are going to be bought by my mum. What happened with that book? It ended up selling 500 copies in the first 2 months, in the first 60 days. And what it did for me in terms of putting me on the map and going, oh my gosh, this guy's got something to offer. I started selling $5,000 upfront packages. People started giving me chunks of money. Now, 5,000 might be a lot to you. It might be nothing. For me at 25 years of age in 2013, living in Melbourne, I was like my previous career was as a lawyer and I really just wanted to get out of law. And so to start to get $5,000 chunks was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. So for me, my 10,000 word book, 48 pages, was the gateway to actually getting going with my coaching business and getting that authority and getting people to pay me what I was actually worth. But here's the thing. It wasn't like the book didn't necessarily give that to me. It was the inner transformative process that I went through where I realized, hold on, I'm actually, like, my self-worth went up through that experience of the book. My trust in myself went up through the experience of the book. And so really the authority and the credibility came from an inner perspective, and then it was transmitted out through the book. Is this, you guys feeling me on this? Yeah. Like, this is as much what a book can do for you logically out in the world as it is the inner transformation that happens. Because let's go back to the stats. This is something everyone wants to do and hardly anyone succeeds at. Why don't they succeed? A lot of people don't have the courage and the cojones to do what it takes to put their message out. I thought I was going to sell 10 books. My first order was 10 books. I'm like, and mum's going to buy 9 of them. And then I was blown away. I honestly could not believe that 500 people would buy my thing. So why is this book important for your business? Let's have some shares. Does anyone want to share with us why it's important for you, either personally or professionally? Heather, would you care to share?
Sure. Hi.
Hey.
It launches my persona into the world and shows my unique perspective that I have something to offer.
I like that word, persona.
Persona.
You guys get that this is like partly about like claiming your message, claiming your space, and claiming your identity as like, hey, I've got something to give to the world.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Go ahead.
Into the first question of why the personal too, it's the reclamation of my voice.
Who can relate to that? Yeah.
Taking ownership of it. It was just like, here I am.
Did anything come to you around like the gateway, like what all of that opens up for you?
There's a laundry list. I've sat in that before, and that's exactly how I see. I'm so glad you said that. I was like, I see this, the book, it's like books actually, and first book. And it's a gateway into just opening up doorways, pathways, and people, meeting new people that are resonant with what it is that's coming through me into the world. Mm-hmm.
Love it. You're getting some serious nods from, we have this thing in inspirational book writers. If you're getting nods from the Oracle, you know you're bang on. Like,
oh, okay.
And I just saw the Oracle just going,
Sorry, who are the oracles?
The Oracle is Davina. We probably need to change her name. IBW review.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Davina, is there anything you want to just reflect back to Heather based on that one?
I just really love the way she said reclamation of her voice, because that is so, so important. And like we see it time and time again, authors who really claim their voice throughout this process, and then where that leads them and the doors and the opportunities that opens up for them. And I'd actually really love Kerry to speak to this one, Dave, especially from where she...
In terms of purpose, like why this was, and what so maybe the gateway point.
Correct, yeah.
So just to give everyone some context, Kerry first worked with us in 2020 to do her book, The New Wealth. And so maybe, Kerry, you can speak to, like, was that book a gateway for you? If so, what did that look like? Like, you know, what sort of happened for you? What opened up for you?
This session, by the way, this session that you're all on right now changed my life then. And I can say unequivocally, there have been many times we've even like done the human design like charts on probably the day that Dave and I did this session for The New Wealth. And it literally birthed through me this new movement, and it gave me purpose and a definition of what I'm here for. And it gave me an understanding of the message that I have. And it really gave me such a deep desire to step into. And I think through this process, and this is what I say all the time around this process, is it births you. And when you step into, it's like, in order to actually take these words and put them onto a piece of paper that nobody can change once they hold that in their sweet little hands, it changes who you are. And it birthed into me this, like, I have a bigger mission, I have a bigger thing, and this is now no longer about me. And so it opened doors because I was willing to step into places I never would have before. And when all of a sudden you're holding an international best-selling book in your hands, people listen to you. They just think you're smarter for some reason. And the reality is, because only 0.01%, as Dave said, like, it's a fucking journey to walk your ass through and actually finish. So you deserve that. And so I think for me, like, it opened so many doors. I've been into, also, like, I've gotten to talk to amazing movie production people. I've talked to other best-selling authors on the New York Times. I've had so many different amazing people come into my world. And the doors that have opened and who I speak to and the mission that I have and the way that I direct this message completely changed through this process. And I am no longer the same person. And it's far bigger than me. And it's because of this journey, for sure.
Who feels their message is bigger than them? Can anyone else relate to that? Like, there's definitely a contribution piece here of, like, the message is coming through you to some extent, or maybe completely. Yeah. Awesome. 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 Let's go to the next part of the book map, which is vision. So what you'll notice in this book map process is we're starting very big picture, and we'll gradually get more and more specific as we dial in the specifics for your book. So when we're talking about vision, this is a sort of a question. This is a question of, what do you see for your book? If you imagine it's done and you're holding it in your hands and it's out there in the world, what's it doing? How's it being used? Where do you, like, physically see it? Do you see it online? Do you see it at speaking gigs, on people's chairs? Do you see it behind you on the stage? Like, where do you see your book? And this can be everything from really micro examples, like someone stops you at your local cafe and says, "Oh my gosh, you're the author of your book. Thank you so much for writing that. It really changed my life." To an email review or an Amazon review, or someone saying, hey, I found your book online and now I love what you've said. I want to be a client. Through to the biggest changes, the biggest shifts, the macro shifts. Maybe you are disrupting an industry or presenting a completely different perspective from what is out there at the moment. You know, we're at a time in history where there's a lot of old systems that are crumbling. Yeah, it doesn't take much of a opening of the eyes to see that, you know, there's a lot of problems out there in a lot of the systems in the world. And so if you're presenting a new way, maybe your book is leading a movement or a new perspective on a problem that people are having. You know, we've got a book writer right now based out of northern New South Wales. She's a birth educator and she's presenting statistics saying, look, basically her message is, if we look at the statistics out of inner city Sydney hospitals, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's ridiculous. It's like 2/3 of all births have an intervention, like have a medical intervention. Like the number of natural births is like so small. And she's like, this is absurd. Like, let's go back to natural birth. And so her book is all about having a beautiful birth, not necessarily a medical birth. What a great idea to be out in the world. You know, those inner city Sydney mums who are so busy and caffeinated to the hilt and just caught up in whatever they're caught up in, they need that message. Yeah. So for you, what does success look like for you? What would be a great book? How would you know you're winning? What would be evidence of that? And I'll give you some examples. So we had this book here, Drugs Do Not Discriminate, How to Overcome and Recover from Drug Addiction by Glenn Munso. There's Glenn on the back over this side. Glenn is just a dude from the suburbs in Melbourne, and he used to be on drugs, used to deal drugs, and he found a way to get off drugs through health and fitness. And now that's what he teaches. And this book is just 5 steps of how to get off drugs as a kid, as a youth, through health and fitness. Really simple sort of framework. He wanted to go on a speaking tour. So he ended up, and it's a great story, this one. The way that he actually got this to happen was he literally just posted on his Facebook, hey, I've written a best-selling book. Who wants me to come speak to their organization? He got one person to say yes. Goes and speaks to that organization. There's like 18 people. Asks that organizer, that person who runs that organization, hey, do you know anyone else? They refer him to someone else. Next thing you know, he's done 18 months of a book tour on the east coast of Australia and sold 5,000 copies of this book, helping youth get off drugs. You know, so you can think as big as big you like. I'm curious, does anyone want to share what they're seeing for their book? Like, what would be a win? Justin, do you want to share with us? What would be a win for this book for you?
For this one, a win would people telling me that, oh, this book kept me up last night. I couldn't put it down. I just had to find out. And because of that, I tried, and I think that I'm gonna like, you know how a lot of movies have like a lot of like random product placement. I'm gonna have like random modality placement like through it. It's like, I tried a coach, or I tried Reiki, or I tried, you know, energy healing because I read your book or something. Like, as you know, I think that would be a big win for my book for this one. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Alexis, would you care to share? What would be a win? What would be a win for your book? Just have a go, you know, or share. I'd love to hear what you've got.
So mine's, I feel complicated, but maybe it's not. So I did write a book before. I wrote it in 2020 and published it. Healing, allowing myself to let myself actually be seen. I had some squirrely things happen after my last one was published. And yeah, I actually have one. Yeah, anyway, what would a win be?
I think you've said it.
me letting myself publish the damn thing that's been sitting for 3 years. Because I wrote the second one the week that I launched the first one and then sat on it for 3 years. So launching it, that's a success. So there you go.
Beautifully said. Do you guys get that a big, yeah, I'm like really taking you to the future in terms of like what success look like and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, just getting the thing done is huge. Huge. Yeah. Carrie's here for that. Thank you for sharing that, Alexis. Leonie, what would be success for you? How would you know like it's doing its thing, it's achieving its purpose? What would really be satisfying?
The information that I want to put in the book, I've been teaching my clients for like the last 10 years. And the feedback that I get from people is, Leonie, you make it so simple for me to understand. Like it's really easy to understand and then implement into my life. And I just, that to me is a win every single day. So I know that I need to reach a lot more people with my message to simplify things and to help them tap into their own inner power. And to me, it would just be a massive win having that out there and being able to give people the opportunity to get to where they want to go way faster with the inner voice, with that awareness of self. Yeah.
Beautiful. Love that.
Thank you.
Rachel, any reflection for Leonie there?
Yeah, so that caught my attention because you said that your message is simple and people get it when you share it with them. Please write it into a book, because a lot of people struggle of how do they simplify their message? How do they make it digestible and approachable? And how do they make it make sense? If you're already there and it makes sense, it's just a matter of, getting it in the right structure, the right format. So I love that. I would definitely love to see your book.
Beautiful. Thank you. Like I have, I call them my analogy guides. I get the most simplest and most beautiful analogies to share with people, and it just kind of puts beautiful perspective. It just makes it easy. So I'll do that. Thank you.
You guys get that if you can present simplicity to your clients when the topic is actually really complex, that is massive value. Yeah. It's something that we strive for in our business. Like books are, the perception that I've experienced from people is that they think they're so complex. And so we try and make it as simple as possible. Like, what are we doing today? We're just doing one step at a time. We're talking about this, we're getting it clear. And then we're talking about this, and we're getting it clear. And then we're talking about this, and we're getting it clear. And then we're talking about this, and we're getting it clear. Like, that's just how this unfolds. So love that, Leonie. That's superb. Does anyone else want to share? Kayla, maybe. Do you want to share what a win looks like for you?
I wrote that I take my own advice because I feel like in writing a book and putting it out there, I'm made myself accountable to live by what I've written. And it's so easy to hide, hey, and just sort of let the world pass you by. But once you've done that, you kind of owe it to yourself to be like that. So I think for me, just a bit more confidence and stuff. So once you've put it out there, you got to own it. So that would be a huge win for me personally. I
fully hear you on that. I've seen that play out so many times because there's integrity, right? There's a few comments there. It's integrity. And you guys get that in the marketplace today, integrity is a huge thing. Because and it's only going to become even more of a thing with AI and all these deep fakes, and like you don't know if it's the actual person talking or whether the AI has made the video. Like having integrity in what you offer, doing what you say you will do when you will do it, massive competitive advantage. Like sets you apart. I absolutely love that. Kerry, do you just want to speak to that integrity point, and then we'll go into message?
I think it was one of the most pivotal pieces in my life, the integrity of my second book, The New Wealth, because when I wrote it, there was pieces in there that I was like, I'm not fully 100% in integrity in this. And so in order for me to fully stand into the message, I knew that things had to change. And it's ultimately what led me to leaving my husband. And ultimately, even when I wrote that book, and I think this is a really fun thing that people don't actually recognize when they come into writing books, is that you don't have to get it all into one book. So one book usually pops off the next book. Sorry if you're here and you don't know that yet. You probably will end up, as I know that there are some people in here already writing their second. But that book, at the end of the day, I knew when I wrote it, I actually wrote the intro for my third book because I knew what had to come for me to hit the integrity of that book. And that until like that would be the process. And when I wrote that third book in February, I tell you, I went back to that intro and I was like, yep, there it was. It was right there in that 2 years prior to it. And so I just think like when you actually look at these books and you go, I'm going to live into the highest integrity of it, that there's such a journey to be that person. And that's ultimately the journey of the book writing. You know, like that's the deepest work of this book writing, is to be the person who can stand in the message and share it with the world. And Alexis said it, right? Like to let yourself be seen in that message means that you have to, I think, I mean, that's what we're here for. There are a lot of people who don't do this in integrity, let's be real, but eventually they get cut down. It doesn't work. Eventually they get found out. And so I think it's the beauty of this container is that we hold people into the highest of their integrity with their message and help them to bring that through. And then you get to live into that. And it's like finding yourself on a level that you've probably never even come close to because you've never given the space to actually allow yourself to be seen in it.
Mm. Ooh, who got something out of that exchange with Kayla and Kerry just there? It's pretty important, huh? You know, and I think this is something that this is where I see inspirational book writers being different from other service providers that sort of provide this sort of coaching and stuff outside in the world, is that we really value the integrity and the inner journey of the book writer. And we want someone to be putting out the truth as they see it and doing it in alignment with who they are. This is, although a lot of our strategies will definitely help you make money and grow your business and things like this and go to Amazon bestseller and all that, we're not going to market your book at the expense of integrity. Or like, you know, you might see some bro marketers out there who are just, you know, pumping out, like they're getting their book done by AI and the prompt is like, imagine you are the world's best marketer and you are writing a book for me on this topic and it's just so sizzling hot and it really gives no substance, but it's just sizzling and makes people want to buy. It's like there's books out there like that. You know, I'm just seeing like the room's just gone dead. It's like some animal has just walked into the room and rolled over and died and is decomposing. What we're about is bringing books that have life force, that have consciousness, that have an energy to them, such that your message in a book calls out to people. You know, very early in my journey, I had some experiences where I was walking past a bookstore and my intuition was like, you've got to go into that bookstore. And I'm like, but my mind is like, but I've got this appointment this way. I was like, no, go into that bookstore. And I walked into the bookstore, didn't know what shelf to go to, just followed the nudge. And there was the book, bottom shelf, basically at ankle level, second in from the left, that changed my life. Yeah, the book itself will have its own journey. So the message that's coming through you will have its own life force. And a big part of this, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, is who you become. And yes, you become an author. Yes, you become a published author. If you go with us, yes, you become an Amazon best-selling author. Above all of that, you become more of you. Yeah, you become more of who you really are, more powerful in your message, more giving, more loving, more commanding, more present, more in integrity with who you are. And then all of those things are so damn attractive out there in the world, where those sort of values, like how common is that string of values? It's not super common. A lot of people in this room have those values, but out there in the world, not necessarily. We've got one more question with, sort of vision and purpose before we get into message. And we're really looking at contribution here. So with your book, what is your book contributing to the reader? Take some time to write that down. What is the book contributing? How is it impacting? What are you wishing the reader will get? How will they feel? This is a super important question. One, because it directs your focus to what you're giving. When you focus on what you're giving, it takes the focus away from yourself, and you're less likely to get caught up in your own mental loops. So what is the book giving? And by clarifying this, we're really giving you it's giving you the North Star of what to head towards. Because when we get into message and structure, if we don't know where we're heading, it's really difficult to decide what to put in the structure. But when you do know where you're heading, it's like, oh yeah, that would hit our purpose. So what do you want others to get from your book? Angie, would you care to share what you're hoping and wishing people to get?
I did start getting some ideas. So
You
that's
did?
good. I wrote some stuff down. I wrote, I want people to feel inspired to follow their own inner voice.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. So then that's really important, because when we're about to go into message and structure, we can check back in on that purpose and that vision and go, if I put that story in, is it going to support that direction, that purpose? Does this make sense, team? This is why we need to focus on the arrowhead, the purpose and the vision, so that we know what to do lower down when we're making those decisions. Anything, anyone else want to share? Heather, would you care to share what came up for you there?
Sure. Opening new doorways of perception that allow for alignment with one's own core truth.
Pretty clear statement, huh? Pretty clear statement. So again, the content that goes in the book will be lining it up so that it supports that purpose.
Thank you.
Awesome. Davina, anything you want to share on this before we move into message? No? Cool. All right, let's go into message. We might have a bit of a stretch, hey team. We're sort of at the halfway point. Let's have a bit of a stretch. Kerry's going to have a dance. We always joke that the timing of these sessions, after the session, Dave's going to the beach, Rachel's going to bed, Kerry's going to the club, and Davina, we haven't decided where Davina's going after this session, but message. Let's talk title and subtitle. Let's talk, I'll share some things about title and subtitle. Number one thing with title and subtitle is context. The reader needs to know what the book's about just by looking at the title and subtitle. If the reader looks at the book and doesn't know what it's about or doesn't know whether it's for them, they're not going to pick it up. Maybe they would pick it up if the graphics and the cover design is like exceptional, but we want clarity. We want to give the reader context straight off the bat. So when you look at my book, Write, Publish, Launch, it's pretty clear, right? What's the book about? Writing, publishing, launching. The subtitle gives you more information. And so one of the principles that we operate by, or that we really look for in rockstar titles, is 1 to 3 words in your title. Big and bold, make it clear. 1 to 3 words. Say the mess. I mean, Glenn Munso, Drugs Do Not Discriminate. That's sort of 5 words. Is it 5? 4 words. But do not is sort of on 1 line, so it's 3 lines. This is Davina's book, Resilient as Fuck. She wrote a book on resilience. You know, Dane Thomas, Clear Your Shit, 3 words. This one's a little bit longer, but it's really only on 2 lines. Her middle name is Courage. You know, this one's 4, Live Your Best Life, but again, it's only on 2 lines. This is a book about workplace culture, tribal unity. Do you see how it's like 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 words, but it's very clear from the outset. You know, this one here did very, very well. Sex priestess. What do you reckon that's about? Being a sex priestess? Yeah. Yeah. This one here by Jackie Grant, Embodied Queen. What do you reckon that one's about? Being an embodied queen? Yeah. Davina, do you want to speak about like the important, like just that point that you put in the chat there on titles?
I freaking love titles and subtitles. Anyone who's worked with me before knows. I feel it, and I know when it's right or wrong for someone and whether it's in alignment. And so many people, like, they might have a title, but they really miss an opportunity with the subtitle. So what we're looking to do is create an opt-in, opt-out for somebody with your book. So the title, typically, as Dave said, is, you know, anywhere between sort of 1 and 3, 5 words on the outside. And then the subtitle can be longer, but it does give that context and helps ground the message. It helps bring it down a little. And with the cover design and the title, subtitle, because you think about it, when somebody gets your book, what's the first thing? They're looking at it in their hands. They're looking at the front cover, right? And so you want to engage them to turn over to the back cover and find out more. So if your title and your subtitle can communicate in a succinct way that engages the reader straight off the back to want to know more and turn the book over, and obviously the longer they hold it in their hands, the more inclined they are to buy it or purchase it or pick it up or take it home, read it, etc. So I think, yeah, titles and subtitles are really a key thing, and sometimes people don't put enough thought and attention into it, but that doesn't happen with our writers because we steer them in the right direction.
We spend a lot of time on title and subtitle. We do an entire workshop on Rockstar book title when we do our book writing intensives. Does anyone want to play with their title and subtitle? Does anyone want to be brave and get some live advice? Leonie, yeah? Thanks, Heather. See you soon. Leonie, what are you working with?
Okay, so I the first book that I've been sitting on for like 3 years now was initially going to be, until this moment, was going to be Awareness is Your Superpower, and then the subtitle is Tools for a Psychic Life. But I just realized that the book's name should rather be Tools for a Psychic Life, because that speaks straight into what it is, and then the subtitle can change.
Yep. Can I just freestyle and play with some like you're so in the ballpark?
Yeah.
You could even go The Psychic Life.
Yeah, I got chills. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah.
Because some of the best titles are ones that communicate an identity. You know, we had an investment advisor write a book called The Freedom Warrior. So if you value freedom and you consider yourself a warrior, you would look towards this book for investment advice. You know, The Psychic Life. You're in the ballpark there. Davina, thoughts?
I like The Psychic Life, and then a combination of the title and the subtitle that you said to bring it down and ground that, because then you're telling them, like, it's meat and potatoes. This is what you're getting.
Yeah, beautiful.
So.
Meat and potatoes is such a good analogy. Like if I say, hey, we're having meat and potatoes, it's like, is there any confusion from anyone in the room about what we're having for dinner? Like, it's very clear, right? Like, even if you're vegan and you don't eat meat, you know what is being put on the table. There is meat, there is potatoes. And I think that simplicity is really important when it comes to book titles. Does anyone else want to have a play? Just share with us what you're working with. Kayla, let's roll.
So I've been in my head going around with No One Puts Kayla in the Corner, which is obviously way too long. But the whole purpose of the book is about, like I said before, believing in yourself and standing up for yourself. And if someone tells you, I think I grew up in that generation of kids are to be heard and seen and not heard. So it's kind of speaking against that. So obviously it's too long. Now, my first book I wrote, this would be my second book. So it's called Building in Bronze. And the subtitle was Healing the Past by Creating the Future. And that was more my manifesto, like a bit of a life story one. So but it still felt too long. Even when I published it, it feels like such a mouthful and it takes up half the cover. So I never kind of nailed something shorter. Before, when you were talking, I wrote Becoming Kayla. But then I don't know if the book is necessarily about me, because putting my name in the title then makes it about me, where I want it to also inspire other people. So is it Becoming You?
Could be. That it becoming you makes it more contribution focused.
Yep.
Kerry or Davina?
Sorry.
Davina, go ahead.
Just around that voice thing, because literally I was contemplating this whole, because I'm probably of the same generation of the whole, kids are to be seen and not heard. But one thing that came to me just then, like I actually kind of like the whole don't put baby in the corner idea. Like don't put Kayla in the corner, but maybe, what was it? Use your voice. Don't put Kayla in the corner. Something like that. Do you know what I mean? So something about the voice, or silent no more, or don't be quiet, or something to sort of say that, and then use what you had as the subtitle, so then it gives it a bit more context. But that's my current
it's like a statement. So statement titles can be really effective as well.
Awesome, thank you. That's really
speak your truth. Leonie's just put that one.
That's awesome.
Speak your truth, something like that.
Yep.
I'll just mention another idea here for titles. And Dr. Alexis and Kerry both did this for their books in 2020. Kerry's was The New Wealth. So it was presenting a new framework for wealth. Yeah. The New Wealth. Alexis, The Expansion Principle. So anytime you put the word the in front of the thing that you're presenting, the word the makes the thing more tangible, even if it's just a set of ideas and intangible frameworks. Like a lot of Dr. Alexis's work is very energy-based. And a lot of us here are working transformationally. So the more tangibility we can get into something, the better. Yeah, Dr. Alexis loves the word the. Leonie said her second book will be The Awareness Advantage. Yeah, so there's tangibility in that. You're like, oh, what is that? That's like something I can grab. It's like a potato, but the awareness advantage, but it's awareness. Kerry, anything you want to add on this conversation about titles, what you've seen work, what worked for you?
I think short and succinct is good. That's that. And I think, again, if I come back to what I said earlier, it's like we so often want to put so much into a book. We think that we need to get all of it into one place. And it's like, I think this, where the title sits, is a really important piece of showing what's the exact message that you're getting out in this book, because it's not, if it's awareness, it's not talking about sex. Maybe it is, but what's it about, in that, like, you can get it really honed into something so that people really understand. And it's like, I think the resistance often comes when we want to think that we can get everything into the title and everything into a book. And it's really like, the more that you can let go of needing the everything and to be everything for everyone in this one book, the better off you're going to be when you hit this title.
And I'll just flow on from that, Davina, and maybe we'll go to you. I think Davina did this super well in her book, Resilient as Fuck. Like meat and potatoes. What's this book about, team? What's it about? Resilient as Fuck. That's the name of the title. It's a book about resilience, right? Resilience. That's what it's about. And it's got a bit of attitude to it, right? But also it's got a bit of Zen, because it's got the bamboo. So it's like this fiery, like, as we say about Davina sometimes, a whole lot of love and light and a little bit of go fuck yourself, right? So this book in 2020, I'll give you a bit of insider. I know, because Davina told me, she doesn't tell this story publicly very much, but 2020, when the world was melting down, the number of people that were DMing Davina and being like, hey, you've got that book Resilience, right? Can I get that? What did the world need in 2020, particularly when the world was melting down? Resilience. Davina's inbox was getting hit up saying, hey, can you give me that? You know, it's not a big book, but this is Davina's statement on resilience. And I tell you what, if there's someone in this world that has had a life experience to learn and, you know, embody resilience, I'd be wanting to learn resilience from Davina.
Mhm.
See, meat and potatoes. What's the meat and potatoes of this book? It's resilience. You want resilience? Go get it. Davina?
I just wanted to add one more point because Kerry said about loving short subtitles, and I'm thinking, okay, so for everyone in this room, what's the importance of a short and succinct fucking hell? What's the short and succinct
Subtitle.
thing about having a short and succinct subtitle? What's important about that is, and Carrie will tell you because she's brought it up and said it so many times before, is on the flip side of this, like after you've written your book and after you've gone through the process and when your book is out in the world, one thing that Carrie said to me is, I don't want to have to go and stumble on a podcast through a really long title and subtitle. And so if you've got a short, succinct title and subtitle, it's easier for you to remember and get out. It's also easier for your audience to remember and get out. Like, it's got resilient as fuck, sticks in your head, right? Like, it's so easy to remember. The New Wealth, so easy to remember. So I just wanted to clarify that point and make that point because I think it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it speaks to, and we do speak about this a lot in our book writing intensive, is if your message is really easy to communicate, like let's say I hear Leonie's message and I'm like, I love that message. It's really simple, clean, easy, compelling. And I go to a dinner party tonight. Am I more likely or less likely to talk to my friends about Leonie's book? I'm more likely because I can pass it on. If Leonie's message was complicated, do you reckon I'm going to try and explain it at the dinner party? Probably not, because I don't want to stuff up. I don't want to look like a goose in front of my friends. And so the message doesn't spread. So the simplicity of being able to have the soundbite for the title and the subtitle, really important in the spreading of messages. Is this making sense, team? Yeah. I'd love you to put in the chat, what's one thing that's really standing out to you? We're just over an hour into this session now. What's one thing that's really standing out to you about your book and your message? What are you really taking home already? What's standing out loud and clear for you? And I'll just, Carmel, I know your video's off, but are you able to chat with us or are you in a not chat space? Kayla's taking away that I have to write it. It has to be done. Leonie's that everybody needs it. Yes. Justin, there's so much amazing stuff that can come from this book, so much possibility. Yes. Can't chat. No worries, Carmel. Awesome. Rachel, we'll just throw to you for a second before we go a bit further into message and then structure. What are you hearing so far today? Like, what's the main thing that sort of stood out to you thus far?
That's a hard question.
Lots of things, hey?
Yeah, lots of things. I think a big piece of it is just being willing to start and being willing to take a step forward, even if you don't know what the whole path is going to look like. I'm also hearing a lot of passion in terms of what these messages are and wanting to bring them to the world, and maybe having some previous hesitation around doing that. So it just makes me realize people are in the right place. You know, I think IBW is really good at helping people move through that fear and be able to take that step.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Mr. Justin, do you want to share just what you're receiving from this so far? And then we'll get a bit further into message.
It's definitely helping to clarify the why, the multiple whys is what I'm getting out of all of this. And so it's like seeing it even more, even though it was already starting to really want to come through. And so it's just sort of, it's helping with the making it fun, exciting, and loving. It's really helping support all that. So
awesome. Awesome. Let's talk. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about a couple of other aspects of message, and then we'll get into some structure stuff. Let's talk about your voice. We spoke before about the importance of integrity and authenticity in you saying what you need to say. When it comes to your voice that goes into the writing, what are the flavors? What are the different aspects of your voice that need to go into the writing? What's the tone? What's the style? What's the voice? Is it, we once had a book writer, also an investment advisor based out of Aspen in the USA, great guy, Ryan Parson, into alternative investments. His first 2 chapters were just so aggressive. He was tearing shreds off Wall Street. It was part of his nature to do so. It was very authentic. And at the end of his 2nd chapter, he goes, oh yeah, so I realized I was coming in really hot there, but it had to be said. So maybe that's your flavor, but what are your flavors? Let's get a bit of a flavor. Like I'll share a couple that sort of come through from me. Maybe we'll go to Davina and Rachel and we'll pop around a little bit. I know that when I write books, there's a lot of intensity. There's a lot of directness. And I like to break that with some lightness as well. Davina, when you write, you've written 2 books. When you write in your voice, what flavors come through for you?
Well, I'm not perfectly polished, as you have all seen today, and I make no excuses for that. I'm just raw and real, but authentic, and I speak with truth and wisdom that I've gained from all the years, and that's the tones that I bring through.
See how much clarity Davina had on that? If a reader is wanting like perfect English grammar, according to university standards with perfectly footnoted according to Harvard referencing standards, they're not going to opt into Davina's stuff because it's not their style. But if you dig raw and real and just as it is, you're going to be like, this is the best thing I've ever read on resilience. Rachel, what's your style? How does your voice come through? What are the flavors for you?
So my voice has evolved over time, and I actually realized as you asked that question, a lot of it has come from my blog writing. It kind of started there for me, and then in my writing, it's sometimes that same like helpful, informative, friendly kind of voice. And then lately I'm playing more with first person. So instead of saying you, I'm actually saying I, So I've done different things, and I think it's very interesting to try those different things.
So a bit of experimentation in voice. So like Davina was very clear on what her voice is, but Rachel's in this place of like trying different things. Fantastic. Kerry, do you want to share you've had a journey with voice. Like I feel like you're sort of settling into a new voice that's coming through for you. Do you want to just speak to that for a moment?
I think one of the most important things about this container is finding your voice, actually. For me, it has been. And this container is a really safe place to explore the edges of our voices. And I would say, interestingly, like for me, each book has its own voice. And I think it comes back down to this, like you pick one thing. And so each book has its own energy. And for me, one of the things that I'm learning in my voice overall is it's shocking. It's, as we said, lightning. It is kind of in your face, but then it also weaves into this really beautiful, juicy storytelling, you know? So it like Dave said, like you get to have a little bit of all of it. And the more that I keep writing, the more that I want to push into like, where can I push the edge of, you know, where can I push the edge of the story, or where can I push the edge of these different things, or where can I push the edge of what goes together in a book, right? Like I said, maybe awareness doesn't have sex, but maybe it does. In my world, it probably would. But like, it's like, where can we find that for each purpose in the book itself? And I think we can weave a lot together, but I also think each book has its own purpose. So like I've done books that are really just educational, informative. My feng shui book is a really straight shot, really educational, informative, simple book. You know, this last book that I did with It Ends With Me has a lot of stories. It's big, it's deep, it's emotional, it's a whole ride. And then Save Your Assets is like a straight shot, 10,000 word, like get it in, it's hard, it's fast. You're gonna get slapped as you come through. And it's succinct on purpose. Like I didn't want people to have to drag through to read it. So each one has its own voice and journey. And I think that that's part of the journey, is finding each edge. And like, as you come through, like I said, it's like you kind of pop a cherry, I think, with authors when you write your first book. And then you want to explore different edges of your voice in each part of your journey, I think. I've seen it for other people too.
Awesome. Mr. Justin, what's coming through in your voice for this one? Do you feel? What do you notice?
I feel like there'll probably be more, because I think in my previous book it was a mix of like very, very direct mixed with humor. And I think there'll probably still be that, but I think there'll probably be some more playfulness and maybe some more whimsy. And then I guess it'll be fun to play with how much, maybe who actually has different voices, since this is going to be like fictional. And so it's like, it's not all just it's not all just necessarily my voice, I guess. So that might
you
be
can play with
too.
it, because there's the metaphor, there's the metaphor side of it. So you can play with different voices. And maybe this is something I'm hearing that's common among, you know, Rachel share and Kerry share, is this okayness with experimenting. Like, you don't need to have nailed your voice right now. Does everyone get that? Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Mr. Justin. Really appreciate that. Does anyone else want to share?
Can I add to that about voice?
Yeah.
I think when you start writing, and I think this is something that people often get resistance around, is this piece of like needing to have it be perfect in the voice in the first round. And in generally speaking, it sucks. Like something about it is going to suck the first time, especially if it's your first book writing.
Or
like, and I don't mean it,
perception of it,
right?
will suck,
is it sucks. That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. The perception of it is that it sucks, because it probably doesn't. But like, there's refinement, and it's, you know, every stage of your first book. And even now I'm working on presentation stuff for speaking. And like, it's like, it doesn't matter whether it's your book or you're podcasting or you're interviewing, or you're speaking, which is all getting your message out wherever it is. The first times you go out, like if you were to go back and look at a speaker who did a YouTube and they've got like their first time, you're going to cringe looking at that book. I mean, looking at that presentation. Like the first version of this, whatever your first book might be, it's like, it doesn't matter what comes out. Like the journey is to let the fullest of it out, because you can always cut back. You can always change it. You can always, there's nothing permanent about you just fully unleashing and becoming the most unapologetic voice. And then you find it, and through the writing is where you'll find it. But then don't limit yourself in what you're bringing through, thinking like, I've got to judge this on the way through, because you don't. It's probably far better than you think it is. And it's through the process where you'll see yourself, and someone else will start reflecting back to you. All these amazing editors, you know, the three of us coaches, all of this stuff, we'll start reflecting back, and you're like, oh my God, it is amazing. Oh my God, this is my voice. And you're going to find the parts of you that you really love, and the parts of you that you're like, actually, that's because someone else told me I had to be that way. And I don't want that in my book. I don't want that conditioning here. And you can go and cut it. You can go and do that. But like the first version out, like let the cork pop out and just go, like unapologetically, just go.
Whew. I love that. What are you guys getting from Kerry's share? What are you receiving? Put it in the chat. What are you hearing? What are you getting permission for? What does Kerry's share give you? Passion? Yeah. There's a whole lot of passion in you, Kayla. I can see that. What a great outlet to get that into the book. Just do it. Go big. Yeah, go to the edge. Go past the edge. Let it be messy. Davina says, do it dirty. Kerry explains things in a way that I get it. So Angie's getting it. Love it. And you get that this is a unique thing, because what's happening in the outside world right now? Censorship. Like, if this was broadcast publicly, we've probably, as a group, offended 7,056 people in an hour. Minimum. Across countries, right? What else is happening in the outside world? Super heightened sensitivities, where you basically can't say anything without upsetting someone's sensitivities. And so if that's the environment in the outside world, trying to write a book in that environment, how limited are you going to be? You really need to be among, this is where the community piece really comes in terms of value, where there's a group of people from all different parts of the world who get together and go, you know what, we're going to create a space where it's okay to go wild, to go to the edge, to be pioneers with our message, to let it out and see what comes out, knowing that there's editing and refinement and iteration and all those processes to come. But we need to be okay with like it coming out and saying something and then being like, whew, how was that, guys? And someone goes, that was bang on. Or someone goes, you know what? It felt a little bit angry. Was that your purpose? Was that what you were intending? And you might go, yeah, I was intending to be angry there. Or I felt like, you know, I'm starting to get to know your voice and it felt like you left us hanging a little bit, like you could have said more. We need to create this space to get those messages out. Dr. Alexa says it's sacred, spicy, and fun. Alexis says there's nothing like writing inside the IBW container. Alexis, do you just want to speak to this voice point? I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Oh, sure. Kind of piggybacking off what Carrie said, it's just, you know, it's an evolution. And I think as you're doing it, you will find yourself, because that's part of what's happening, especially if you do it in a container with other people. Like if you're doing it in, you know, the week-long experience, there's energetically, everybody's on the same page, right? Everybody's in, you know, we're pacing it out individually, but there's still this experience that's occurring. And as you're doing that, you're finding yourself sometimes for the first time. And I don't think it matters how many books you've written, you find yourself again for the first time. Because you are, I feel like we're in a constant becoming, and we're new all the time. And I feel like that's what finding our voice is about. And for me, it's been being okay with it not being ordinary and it not being the way other people want it to be, or it being it brings out all the things that people have told you over the years that you're wrong for being. Your voice and finding it will bring all of that up. And that's beautiful.
Amazing.
Because, you know, if we're too much, if we're that's amazing. So yeah, the finding the voice is an evolutionary process, and just allowing it to come up. I know for me, the book that I wrote that I'm getting ready to publish, I'm editing it. It feels so heady sometimes, and I read it and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, is this going to be too dense? But it needs to have that elevation. It needs to have, I was told many years ago that the average reader is, you know, you aim for an 8th grade reading level. And it's like, well, this sure as shit is not 8th grade reading level. I'm a pirate too. You know, and it's that part and being okay. And then for some people, it's like really raw, and it's really, so it's whatever it is for you. And it's okay if it's not the same. Like, you don't have to be messy if you're not. Like, you can be if you are, like, whatever. It's just being you and being comfortable with it. So that's my take on voice.
Beautiful. And that's the perfect segue into structure here, because let me tell you what structure is not. Structure is not what your high school English teacher told you it needs to be. Structure is not what was required of you in academia. Structure is not what your well-meaning friend said about your writing. I'll tell you what structure is. this is my take on structure for inspirational book writers books. We said before that each book each idea has a life force. It has a way that it wants to naturally be organized. Think about going down to the ocean. When a wave crashes into the shore, what happens to the water as the water recedes? The water naturally finds its way back into the structure of the ocean. Naturally, we don't need to force it. We don't need to overthink it. There's a natural order that your ideas will take when you allow that natural order to play out. What I'm saying here is that there are no rigid dogmatic rules around what your structure needs to be like. You can have 25 chapters, 50 chapters, you can have 5 chapters. You can have, like Dr. Alexis had, pieces of channeled material where the grammar is not Harvard referencing Chicago Manual of Style proper, but you don't want that piece to be edited in that way because it would change the energy of the message, especially if, like, for people like Dr. Alexis who are channeling a message. Like, the way it comes through is very important. So I really just want to collapse any rigidity or rules around this, and perhaps if each of us can just say, yeah, our high school teachers and our university teachers can just, you know, take a side seat here for the minute. And before I even share with you any structure, or we even talk about structure, I want to ask you, as the author, if there was a natural order to your ideas, how would they start to form up? And right now, I'd love to give you an opportunity to actually draw on your page the natural formation of your ideas. So is there, the core idea is probably the title or the main message of the book. And then what are the offshoots of that? So you might think of a mind map. You might draw the main idea in the middle and then mind map it out like this. Or you might decide to do it in boxes, you know, here are my ideas, box, box, box. What's the natural order? If your purpose, think back to your purpose, this is what I'm intending to do with my book, and this is my message. In order to communicate that message, what do I need to tell people? What do I need to put in the book? Is there a set of principles? Are there stories? And if there are principles, what are the first principles? Or what are the ideas that need to go into the book for me to communicate my message that will help me to hit my purpose? I encourage you now just to go with whatever comes through for you. Thanks, Leonie. What are the pieces? Trust yourself in what comes through. What are the pieces that are coming through? And you might just go, story about Bob, story about this time in my life, this principle, really important, this idea, this image. We're creating it's almost a brainstorm of the different pieces that will allow you to communicate your message, that will allow you to hit your purpose. And by doing it this way, we're finding the natural order for your book. You might divide your book into parts, part 1, part 2, part 3. And each part has 3 chapters or 5. You might just have 5 chapters. You might have 7. You might have 8. You get to divide your material the way that you want to divide it. And if you think that some things go together, then maybe they do. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this principle, and then I'm going to follow it up with this principle, which is really related to the first one. The other thing with stories is that you might be able to one story might illustrate 3 or 4 principles. You just pick which you're just matching principles to stories. We'll just get a couple of perspectives on this. Davina, I'd love you to just share, how did you approach structure for Resilient as Fuck? Like, what was your thinking? I think you've got a really great structure. There's like 8 chapters in the book. Like, how did you, or 7, how did you come to that? Like, what mindset did you go into the structure with? I'd love to say that I had it all figured out, but I actually didn't. I had literally, I knew that there were 7 things that I wanted to speak to specifically, like optimism, perseverance, those kind of things, humor, sense of humor, absolutely. And so I kind of had them as my chapter headings. I had quotes that I just found that I liked, that I knew that I wanted to include. And I remember sitting outside one day and I'm like trying to cross match the quotes to the headings, and what's the like just kind of do it. The way I approach books is I usually get the cover first and the title, the subtitle, and then everything kind of lands for me after that. And so I didn't sort of say, oh, I have this, that, and all the rest of it, but I did have the 7 points that I wanted to talk about. I did have the quotes, I matched them up, and then I actually started to fill in the gaps. So I used to padded out those pieces. And what is it that I want to say about perseverance? What is it that I want to say about sense of humor? And then to finish out the chapter and round it out, it's like, what does this mean for you, the reader? Like, what's the purpose of it, and what does this mean for you? So that's how I kind of... You notice the really high quality questions Davina's asking herself there? Like, what have I got to say about that? Like, once you've got the topic, if you just ask yourself that question, you will get all the material out. What have I got to say about that? Hey, Rachel, what do you got to say about that? You got anything else to say about that? Is there anything more you want to say about that? Is there anything else to illustrate about that? Quality questions. I'd love to invite Kerry here to speak about your journey with structure, because I think you've had a journey that this is my perspective, is that I think it's quite common to a percentage of book writers, in that you get a set plan, but then it evolves as you go. So can you just speak to that around like getting something in place to get you started, how it's evolved for you, and then where it lands for you and how you make those decisions for what it's actually going to be in the end?
So I will say that the two major, well, I've done 3 books with you guys. The first book I wrote with A New Wealth, I knew when we did our book map session, Dave, like I knew by the end the chapters that I had to do. And when I sat down, I wrote from the chapters just like this. Like I just, like Davina said, like, here's this chapter. What do I need to put in here? Da-da-da. And it was like a whole bunch of, I'm going to say for me, it felt like a whole bunch of blog posts that I wrote. With It Ends With Me, the 3rd book coming, it was stories. And I really challenged myself with that. And the structure for me, Rachel knows, was like hellish. And it was really hard for me. And I say this because a lot of people, I know this is what Dave's asking, because for me, it was really hard to actually structure. And I really wanted to challenge myself with stories and really personal stories. And so I started with what were like, I remember as we came into it, I didn't know what I was going to write about. And I'm saying this to you guys who don't know what you're going to write about in Book Writers is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks out, I was looking at Dave, and like I had signed up in November for February. And I was like, beginning of Jan, I was like, I'm still not ready, Dave. He's like, you're not ready, Carrie. And like, it was literally like 2 weeks out that I was like, okay, we can do this. And then everything started popping, pop. And all of I'm going to say for me, it was the lessons that I wanted to teach. And it was like in my life, these were the lessons that was like, oh yeah, that's what's landed. That's what's landed. That's what's landed. And so then I had to go and look at the stories that I wanted to put in. But then once I did that, like the structure still felt really freaking messy. And I'll say this here because then I sent it to Rachel in this mess. Like, I don't know. Rachel being the beautiful editor that she is, I don't know, this looks really messy. And she sent it back. She's like, Carrie, actually, it's not as messy as you think. And I think this is a really important lesson to learn, which is, again, just write it, just get everything out. And then when she actually told me, when I finally got it, took a hot minute for me to get this in my head. But when she actually got to me what I needed to do to structure it, not much had to change at all. And so I think this is where we can like let it breathe and let it evolve itself, because like when we just let it come out, and again, it's what I said before, it's like if it just let it out of you, it will make sense, but it doesn't necessarily make sense while it's happening. And so then you can come in and have somebody else's eyes on it to go, hey, actually, this isn't as crazy as you think it is. This isn't actually as messy or unstructured as you think it is. And then you can kind of like, that's where we pulled things in, where we've moved things around. And it can evolve itself, you know, like, and I think, again, this is like this process of depending on what the energy of the book is to the structure, you know. And I think some of these, like I know with you, Justin, with what you're doing with, you know, the way that you want to take it, it's going to evolve itself. You're not going to know because it's a story. And someone else was talking about being a metaphor, right? Like it's going to evolve itself. And so we've got to let it have its own life. And like this book births you. It doesn't, you birth, like, let's be clear. It births you. You don't birth the book. So yeah.
Well said.
Does that help?
Well said. Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. Rachel, is there anything you want to add? Because you were, you know, down in the trenches on Kerry's thing. It wasn't as messy as Kerry was perceiving it to be.
The other thing that's been really clear to me lately is the more emotional the topic is that you're writing about, the harder it's going to be to structure it as you're writing it. So that first iteration needs to be very open and often very messy in order to just get it out. Because I'm experiencing a very similar thing in a piece that I'm working on, where my brain, even with all the patterning and organizing and editing that I do, just I can't structure it as I'm going. That has to come later. So I think, you know, if you're writing something that's highly emotional, giving yourself permission to let it be less structured is helpful. If on the other hand, you have like a specific methodology that you teach that's very chronological and, you know, more orderly, that's an easier way to say like, okay, chapter 1 will be this, chapter 2 will be this, you know, these are the different topics. But if it's emotional, just giving yourself that permission to be a little bit more open with it is helpful.
Love it. Love it. And we've definitely seen that. Davina?
Sorry, just last little piece on that is I think, like you've heard from each of us now, but when you're writing something that's highly emotional, because my second book was, and I struggled with the structure for that all the way through. I was constantly saying, Dave, I think it sounds like shit. And I remember Carrie saying to Rachel before she sent it, this is a pile of shit, you know. But I think when it's highly emotional or when it's really story-based, creative, you know, it's a different part of the brain that you're using to stuff that's highly logical or structured or whatever. So I think whichever phase you're in when you write it, if you don't censor it and you just let it out, and we did have, I'm thinking of Sue's here, Dave.
But
like
for sure, scientist. She started with logic and structure, and the structure was impeccable. Just didn't really feel that good to read it. It was like, yeah, logically this makes complete sense, but there's no feeling in it. And so for her, it was logic first. And then in the second iteration, she put the emotive words in, so it felt good. And so whichever one comes first for you, whether this is what Kerry, Rachel, and Davina are saying, is whatever comes first for you, whether it's emotion first, okay, no problem. Then you can go and add in structure as appropriate in the second go. Or if you like Sue's, our client, who was, you know, scientist, chiropractor, the logic came first, the emotion came second. However it plays out for you is totally fine. And Rachel's got a good one here. The other thing that helps you discover the structure is talking about it. And this is something that we do a lot of in the book writing intensive, is we give you the opportunity to voice what your book is about half a dozen, well, at least half a dozen times to different people throughout the week, because the more that you can talk about it and get it sharp, the easier the idea spreads. Awesome. Awesome. Any questions, team? Any questions? Angie, Kayla, Carmel, Dr. Alexis, Justin? Where do you think we should go from here, team? Oh, Carmel's here. Good to see you. Who would like to hear about like the path forward, about what that could look like Yeah, seeing some nods here. Yep. So the path forward from the book map is to actually move. So we have 2 programs and one follows along from the other. The first one that helps you to write the book is called the Online Book Writing Intensive. We've run it 33 times now since 2014. Essentially, it's a program to help you write your book in a week. Alexis knows what she's writing about now. Oh, how good. It dropped. It dropped. Happy days. Well done. That's great. Write your book in a week. We've done it we've had over 500 people come through that program. And the idea of it is that, because here's the thing, this is why I started it, is when I wrote my first book, I wrote it in a week. I had my business, I had my life going on. I didn't have 6 months to go and sit in a hut in Bali and write my memoirs. It wasn't practical for me. But I could spare a week. And so what I did is I said, right, I'm going to give myself this week to get the draft out of me. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to get it out of me. And so that's what I did. I took my notepad, I took my pen, I actually wrote my first book on a pen with a pad and paper, and I walked in the Melbourne Botanic Gardens and I would write. And I wrote the first book and I got it finished in 4 days. And then I went surfing on the next day because the surf was good. And so from there, when I published my book, when I went into like the publish and launch phases, people started asking me, like, how did you do that? How did you publish your book in just 6 weeks and then launch it? And so I started teaching it. So everything that we do in our programs, I've personally done. And I've personally done over and over. And now Davina's been through the process. Kerry's been through the process. Because again, integrity is important to us. And so really simply, the book writing intensive is a week. In October is our next one to get your draft done. Now there's preparation work leading in. We do a number of preparation calls. We do this book map session again as a group. There's also an option to do a one-on-one book map with me where we spend 2 hours and go really deep into your message. So there is an option to do that as well. I don't really want to complicate it too much other than to say, if you've loved this book map session and you've got even a semblance of a plan and you want the pathway moving forward, when you join the book writing intensive, you will have a draft manuscript by the end of the week. And then just to share with you how the journey unfolds from there is once it's written, then you're going to go into the phases of refinement. And, like we say, at the end, Sunday night, end of the book writing intensive, it's not going on Amazon. Although Kerry almost was moving through, he was looking to break some records with her last book, Save Your Ass, and do that. Once the draft's done, then the refinement phases begin. And all of those refinement phases happen in our publish and launch process. We've got a whole team of book production experts. We've got editors. Rachel's one of the editors. We've got formatters, cover designers. We've set up our business to take people from idea through the writing, through the publishing, through the launching, the whole way. And so the offer that's on the table right now is to come and join us to write your book. Come and join us. There's going to be Davina's coaching for the week. Kerry is joining us to coach for the week. Rachel was coaching on the last week. However, this time she is getting married. So I think that's a great excuse to not coach at a book writing week. But certainly Rachel is a key member of our publish and launch team in helping the manuscripts develop in that iteration stage. I'm not sure what else to say. Mr. Justin, you've been here before. Is there anything you want to say about your experience with the book writing intensive and any message you'd share with someone thinking about joining us?
I'd say if you want to get your book written because you just went through all this exercise and you're like, this has to come out, and you're like, I don't know how I'll exactly do it. Like this makes it happen. It's the hardest thing would be to sign up, but they take you through, and it's like having a year in a week. So it really also messes with time, which is which is beautiful because it's sort of like, why take years? Why take 7 years when you could just take, you know, a week, and then maybe it does take like 9 more months to iron out other stuff, because the rest of the world doesn't operate like inspirational book writers, unfortunately. The rest of the world is a little slower sometimes. And you meet awesome people, like, I don't know, it's like family that you like.
Important, because not
If you
everyone
don't
likes
like
their
it, like,
family.
she just drop right now. Seriously, like, this life's too short.
Awesome, awesome. And one thing Justin didn't mention is Justin's already joining us for October. So made that decision ages ago. Carmel, who's here today, she's already in for October. Carmel, are you able to speak at this point, just on your experience of, and sort of why you've decided to come back again?
Yeah, I find the container to be very alchemical and a super magical space. So yeah, I had to come back, really. And I'll be bringing another project into this space. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Alexis, you've been with us before. What's it meant to you, and like, what's your perspective for the group here?
Well, that's the question, right? What it's meant to me. That's a good question. David asks amazing questions. It has meant more than I probably could properly articulate. It being held by both Dave and Davina is beyond words. There's nothing like being held. We're not, we aren't humans just to be in like little vacuums by ourselves. And we try to do that because we have this message from society that that's what we're here to do. And it isn't at all. And you try and write a book by ourselves. There's lots of people who do it. But if you really know that it's time to do that, doing it with loving, amazing human beings that know how to and hold that space, there's nothing like it. It's meant everything to me. It's been huge. It's been huge. There's so many. Yeah, I don't even know. That was such a good question because it's meant so much to me. I've been in 3 of the week-long writing containers. The first one was in January of 2020, and I joined, I think 2 days before we started. I don't even think you're allowed to do that anymore. I think it was the night when he was sleeping the night before. I don't know. It was some crazy thing. You're not even allowed to do it anymore, okay? Because it was nuts.
We cut off registrations earlier now.
Yeah, because but I do crazy things. So I didn't have a book map. I didn't have anything. I just knew that I'd always known I'd write a book, and then it was like, oh, I'm writing a book. So I wrote it without a map, without anything. So you have that benefit that you're at least thinking about it prior to the night before you start. So that's great. You're ahead of the game. And I wrote it in a week, and we published in 6 months. And the week that we published the first one, I wrote the second one completely due to, all the things that move around and the energies and all the things. I didn't publish that one. I did sit on the manuscript for, but then I did another one. I think I did because I have 3 books. They're just not all. Anyway, they're amazing. The containers are amazing. The humans you meet are amazing. It's amazing. I should have more adjectives, but that's what we got. We got amazing.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Alexis. Do you want me to, I'll just put in the chat the link to the intensive. We're actually running a early bird special right now. So if you join the intensive, you get $500 off. If you join the diamond option, which is the one-on-one with me, you also get me as your book coach. So there's an option for a lot of intimacy in the coaching process, in the lead up, during and after. And there's $1,000 off the diamond option right now. So I might just bring that up on the screen and just show you guys of what's actually included. So we do an opening ceremony that sets the scene. Essentially, like, people go, well, what happens in the week? We're doing 6 live check-ins every 24 hours for 7 days. Yeah, so people go, how does this get done? Well, we break the book down into bite-sized pieces. So now these check-ins happen at all different hours of the day and night, for all different people in different time zones. Like, we've got We've got Australia, and the US represented here, even on this small group now. If you're in the US, you'll be getting Kerry as your coach during North American hours. And the idea of these check-ins is, you guys have seen how there's so many micro decisions to be made with a book, right? It's like, do I do that or that? What about this? Or, hey, this is coming up for me. If those things don't get answered, that's when books stall. But the way we've designed it is so that those problems can't last more than a couple of hours, because you bring them to a check-in and go, hey, Kerry, this is what I'm facing. This has come up. And Kerry will be like, yeah, switch perspective this way. Have you thought about that? Maybe you don't even need to worry about that. Oh, and it just collapses it and you can move again. So how does a book get done in a week? We remove distraction and we get those micro decisions answered on the spot. That's why it's like a year's worth of progress in a week. Does that make sense? This is not like voodoo magic, although there is plenty of magic. I don't know. I don't think it's voodoo. I wouldn't use that word. But it will seem like magic to the outside world because people have this perception that books take 4 years or 5 years, or you've all heard those. I've been waiting 12 years to write my book, or I'm still working on it. You know, you'll probably, when you write your book in a week, you'll probably offend a lot of people because they'll be like, you did it in a week? Oh, it must be crap. That's what they'll say. But no. I just got in a space with people who have done this hundreds of times before. I followed the steps and I let it come through me. Let me just share a couple of other really big highlights of the week. So you actually get to get feedback on your manuscript. We invite you to submit snippets of your work. So you actually get live feedback from our editing team during the week. We do a whole heap of workshops. We do one on the compelling introduction. So we really want to nail your intros. We do one on a full 2-hour session on book titles. So we really dial that in. We do a preview session of what the steps moving forward to publish and launch look like. You've got unlimited questions and support in the group. The group energy is epic. And I think you've heard that from everyone today. And then the closing ceremony to really round it out and then preview what's coming next. So whole stack of stuff in the intensive. I'll show you the pricing. So you'll see here, this is in Australian dollars. So if you're in the US, take 500 off that, and that is the intensive price, or take 1,000 off that, and that will be your diamond price. Open until this is the equinox going exact in Australia, Saturday the 23rd at 4:49 p.m. Australian time. You just got to use that code to get the deal. We've already got Justin's in, Carmel's already in. Team, what are your thoughts? Questions? Kayla, Angie, thoughts, questions? Alexis, thoughts, questions, concerns? What comes up for you? Angie's in. Awesome. Rock and roll. Yes. Can we give Angie a whoa yes? Can we introduce Angie to one of the come off mute team? So Angie, we're going to induct you into one of our traditions already. You just get to receive love and energy from the group. Should we load it up, team? Whoa! Yes!
Yes.
And Kayla, we just inducted you as well.
I'm in. I've just got a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm super keen.
Yep.
My first question is it kind of like a 9 to 5 thing during this week? I'm just trying to juggle a few other things. Or is it like 24-hour thing? Is it the sort of thing where you only sleep a few hours and you just go all the time?
Great.
And do I need to remove myself from my house is my second question, just because I do have 3 teenagers and animals and husbands and things who will come and interrupt me anyway. So am I better off going somewhere else to do this? Like what, just on a commitment from me and where I would need to be in a good space to be able to do? That's probably my biggest question.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Yeah, and the multiple husbands definitely need to be put aside. Men, just being silly. So the way we've designed it, obviously you can see in this group, like like who's in the USA? Can you just put your hand up if you're in the USA? So we've got more than half the room is American. Davina's in Brisbane. I'm in the Sunshine Coast. Carmel's in Sydney. We have people from all the time zones from all over the world. And so even some from Europe as well. Canada often shows up. We get some from Bali and like Singapore and things like this. The way we've designed it is it's on a 24-hour clock. So there is a check-in every 4 hours. Now, what that means is that you can play the week according to your schedule and what you've got going on. So we've had single mothers who are like, you know what? I've only got the evening. Like 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., that's basically all I've got because they're with their child the rest of the time. They come on and we have had single mothers write their book in 7 blocks of 4 hours during a week. And so they show up at the check-in and the check-in, and they're only showing up to 2 per day. Other people play it differently. They show up in the morning at the 9 a.m. And then they show up in the evening session. So what we encourage you to do is show up as much as is practical, but don't think you need to, like, if you're asleep at 1 a.m., don't think you need to show up at 1 a.m. unless you want to party on with the likes of Kerry, where that'll be like morning for Kerry and it'll be like daytime dance club, daytime dance party. Yeah. Justin, do you just want to speak about your experience with like showing up with check-ins? Like, how did you approach that? Like, did you go to every single one? Did you miss some? Like, how did you sort of play that?
Yeah, I try to go to as many as possible. Like, I definitely didn't go to all of them because I was, also still technically working a full-time job as well. But I don't know, it's amazing. Like when you say this is the most important thing in my life this week, the world gets out of your way. Like the last intensive I did, I thought it would be bananas, but like so many meetings got canceled that week. It was just like, all right, thanks. So I got to go to way more check-ins and get way more writing and walks on the beach than I was hoping for from the beginning. So things tend to just work out when we declare like this is happening.
Yeah. Just to speak to your piece about whether you get out of the house or not, a big part of the success of this week is environment. So if you've got an office space or some sort of space that you can really create that is genuinely yours, like if your office is in your bedroom and like the husbands are rolling in and like vying for your attention, maybe that's not the best. But if there is an environment that you can carve out, that would totally work. Having said that, we also have had people who go, you know what? I'm going to the beach for a week. I'm going to rent myself an apartment that overlooks the water, or I'm going to go to the country for a week. It really just comes down to what would work best for you. But definitely, like Justin said, that commitment and clearing away distractions, that can really work. Having said that, I've also seen people go, you know what? I've only got the first 4 days that I can actually attend, and then I've got something on days 5, 6, and 7, and they get the book done in 4 days. I mean, I got my book done in 4 days. It's really, you can really surprise yourself with what you're able to achieve in this space. And people I'm seeing so many nods from people that have been there, done that. You get to the end of the week and go, I've had someone go, like, it was astonishing. They were so surprised by how much they got done in such a short period of time. So does that answer your question there, Kayla?
Definitely, thank you. I've just found in the past when I've tried to do webinars and things, my teenagers, even though I've said don't disturb me, will just walk in the room and be like, but hang on, what's for dinner? And it's like, well, I'm kind of busy. So yeah. I think I might need to remove myself, knowing that my environment is quite hectic at times with my busy family and things. So that did answer a lot of questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Team, can we send Kayla a big well yes for getting on board as well? Whoa. Yes. Awesome.
Hey, Kayla, just quickly, just to add to that, I will say the when I wrote The New Wealth, it was in the middle of lockdowns and I had 2 little ones, and I removed myself for a week to a beautiful little spot in Breckenridge, Colorado. It was the best thing I could have done for myself for that week. I don't regret that in any way, shape, or form. And the way that it's also beautiful when you actually remove yourself, like I brought the food that I wanted, only the things that were going to nourish me, and like only the things that were going to be part of what I wanted for this journey. And so you really get to have a clear slate, a clear place that doesn't have any of the other energy like distracting you. And I think it's a really powerful process. I mean, I've done it both ways, but that was really amazing. So if you're feeling that, I highly recommend. It works well.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Yep.
Yep. So the dates are the 16th to the 22nd of October. So if Angie, if you're in the US, that will actually start the Sunday night, the 15th. The first session will be later in the after. Depends what time zone you're in. It'll be like 4, 5, 6 p.m. on the Sunday night will be the first session. And then it'll flow on from there. Carmel says one of the last writers container, she was holed up in her studio out the back of the house. So yeah, we do speak a lot about environment. One of the prep sessions that we do is called the quantum book writing method. And what that's about, we could have really named that how to write a book in a week. And one of the key pieces of that is environment. Because when your environment is rocking, you're set up for success. So we do go into that in quite some detail. Yeah, Kerry's just got the check-in times in Mountain Standard Time. Yep. Awesome.
I write all of those. I was just writing those because I'm like, I've been on every single one of those check-ins many times, except for the 5 a.m. one. I don't usually get to be seen at that one.
Yeah. It's crazy though. We have people who love being there in the morning, and the Australian, like Kerry coaching North America, you'll probably get some Australians who are getting up early, catching your afternoon. So there's this really like cross-cultural, cross-international sort of feel and flavor, which is awesome because that's part of what we're here to do. Shall I give you some dates of when the prep sessions are coming up so that we can actually just make a very clear off-ramp of like from here to the next session, this is where it is. So we have on Friday, the 6th of October at 11 a.m. Brisbane time. So Angie, and if you're in North America, that'll be Thursday evening. We're doing a bonus question and answer call. So that would be the very next session. The bonus question and answers are sort of a catch-all. We talk about all different things to get you prepared. That's an hour. So that one's coming up then. And then the following week on the 11th of October, so that Angie, that'll be the 10th in the evening, we're doing the group book map session. So we'll revisit this book map and go deeper. And then on Friday, the 13th of October at 11 a.m. again, that will be the quantum book writing session. So Angie, that'll be the 12th in the evening for you. And of course, when you join, you get access to the book writing intensive calendar. You can just click a couple of buttons and it'll add all of these sessions to your Google Calendar so that it just pops up there. And of course, if you do go for the diamond option where you get the one-on-one with me and also the Voxer book writing coaching, you've sort of got me as your book coach in your back pocket leading in, that is available. Like as soon as you sign up, we can do that book map basically. Like what day is it today? We could do it in a day or two. We could do it next week. We can do it as whenever you wish. All right, team, let's round out there. It's been an amazing session. Thank you so much for joining us. Davina, you've been awesome. Rachel, you've been awesome. Kerry, you've been awesome. And Angie, Kayla, Carmel, Justin, so great to have you and really looking forward to rock and roll in October. Yes, all the sessions are recorded if you can't attend. Yep, we record all the sessions, Kayla. All right, team, thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.